So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way,
Let me
much
just
less
ask
is known
you
than
right
might
now,
think.
do you
I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are 3 incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
Came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
All personnel aware of the proper protection equipment. This includes all personnel identified as staff and school players, CIDs, and support staff. Feet, eyes, throat, and drawing protection is mandatory and should be worn at all times by personnel directly involved in or near the scenario. Always check your mask prior to use to ensure there are no cracks and the mask is in safe working condition.
Should I put the water in there now?
Yeah, go ahead. This is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah.
Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude.
Feeney's yelling at me.
Help me. Your hands. Help me. Your hands. Back to
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face.
On your face.
On your face.
Someone
building. Quickly. We've got this. Just get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy.
Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94. There was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends.
Or
I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Right. Exactly. And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else that we might be faced with. And that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Bernie Sanders says, damn straight I can beat Hillary Clinton. Hey, off and running in 2016 in the Democratic side. Hello, everybody. What do you say? It is Monday. Here we go on a big Monday, May 11. Great to see you today. And welcome. Welcome to this special Monday edition of the Bill Press Show. Hope you had a great weekend. I'm ready to dive into the news of this week, starting here on Monday, news of the day from Washington, D.C. Gearing up for a big vote on the Patriot Act after that bombshell of a decision last week up in New York by the U.S. Court of Appeals, saying the NSA's massive data collection program was illegal. We've been telling you that for years. Courts finally agreed. Now we'll see what Congress has to do about it. So we'll bring you up to date on all the news here from Washington, from around the country, and around the globe. We serve it up. You tell us what you think about it. Here on your local progressive talk radio station, coast to coast. Glad to be there with you to start your day the liberal way. Glad to be here with you also on Free Speech TV, America's only 24/7 progressive television network, on DirecTV and the Dish Network. And also glad to be with you worldwide on our video stream. It doesn't matter where you are. You can catch up with us on your electronic device, of course, at youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKRTV. So listening, watching worldwide on the video stream, welcome to the program and welcome to the team, Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, hey. Nice to see you again.
Happy
with
Monday.
Jamie Benson on the phones. He's here to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Balding is here to keep us on the video cam for Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. And a big shout out, Bill Press and friends, and big shout out to friend of Bill, Clinton Yates, for coming in on Friday and keeping the ship afloat. At least I think he did. Looks like he didn't sink.
He did a great job, yeah.
He always does. Always does a good job. And always hear a lot of good things from you about it. And our good friend Bernie Sanders, who sort of launched his presidential campaign on our show the morning he was on with us, the morning he announced, before he made that big announcement. Yesterday, appearing on Face the Nation with Bob Schieffer, he gets the inevitable question. I mean, come on. Are you serious? Do you really think you can beat Hillary?
Let me just ask you right now, do you really think you could beat Hillary Clinton? And if so, how and where is she vulnerable?
Okay, great question. The answer is yes. And the answer is because there is, in my view, massive dissatisfaction in this country today with corporate establishment and the greed of corporate America and the incredibly unequal distribution of wealth and income which currently exists. Bob, when you have 99% of all new income generated today going to the top 1%, when you have the top 1/10 of 1% owning almost as much income as the bottom 90%, people working longer hours for low wages, and all of the money is going to the people on top, you know what? People don't think that's a good idea.
Not a good idea. That's Bernie's message, man. He has honed it down. He's got it, in a nutshell.
You know what's interesting?
And it makes sense. And it's right.
You know
He's right.
What's interesting is you never see Bernie do the Sunday shows.
No. Now.
He never does the Sunday shows.
That's right.
And now he's running for president.
Yeah.
He's got to do them, and he's great.
Yeah. He's very good at it. He stayed in town this weekend, which is very unusual for him, doing the Sunday shows. And, I thought that's just, again, in a nutshell, what his campaign is all about, which is why I say it has appeal to across the board, not just Democrats, Republicans, and independents. He will surprise people how well he does. We may surprise you how well we do today with a great gang coming up. Joe Cirincione, our foreign policy guru, will be here a little bit later in the program. We'll also be talking to the head of the Washington office of the ACLU about that big NSA decision last Thursday afternoon, just after we ended the show. And that's where we'll start our program this morning as well. And we'll talk to Alex Roarty down at the National Journal Hotline about the latest political news of the day. We'll get started, but first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. The latest celebrity to come out in favor of legalization of marijuana is...
I thought you meant, to come out.
No. In favor of marijuana, legalization of marijuana, is Morgan Freeman. He sat down for an interview with the Daily Beast, and he says that he personally loves smoking marijuana. He said, quote, "I'll eat it, drink it, smoke it, hell, I'll even snort it if I can." He says he has fibromyalgia pain in his arm, and, quote, "The only thing that offers any relief is marijuana. Legalize it across the board."
I was just going to say, I'll bet he is no stranger to marijuana.
He admitted it himself.
Yeah, right.
Maybe that's his secret to his nice, smooth voice he has
One
there.
One of the greatest, most recognizable voices in
Absolutely. Yeah.
The White House is still working on a plan of how to keep intruders out. Right? They're trying to figure out ways to make it a little bit safer, protect the White House a little bit more from possible fence jumpers. And on Friday, they installed phase 1 of what they're working on to put some new security measures in place. At the top of the White House fence, the little tippy top there, they're going to be sharpened points at the end that are going to face slightly outward. So if you're going to jump over the fence, you're going to have to jump over some sharp edges there that could cut you.
I'll have to try those out today.
Give them a try. I know you'll be down there.
I wasn't there Friday because the president was out of town, so there was no briefing. But I'll be there today, so maybe,
Essentially what they are, they're bolted on skewers.
Yeah.
So that if you were going to jump over the White House, you may become a shish kebab.
Yeah, if there's that's what I do. If the line's too long to get through the gate, I just go over. Yeah, right.
Good luck with that. Mm-hmm. Good luck with that. And congratulations to the St. Louis Zoo. They received a 2.5-year-old, 850-pound polar bear. Made it from St. Louis came from New York. And you know how they got this polar bear there? Via FedEx. They FedExed a polar bear from New York using a plane and a truck to the St. Louis Zoo. Cali, K-A-L-I, is the polar bear there at the St. Louis Zoo. So go see the polar bear that was shipped via FedEx.
So why did they move it from New York to St. Louis?
It was just time. They do these swaps every now and then. And it's on loan, so it's on loan.
Get you to see if you went to the FedEx office and said, "I'd like to ship," and then the guy would be looking in the rate chart to see what the going rate is.
Is there a first class option for my polar bear?
Maybe they shopped around.
You know?
Maybe.
They go to UPS and FedEx and
good point.
Whatever. Right.
Good point.
College students. That moving company, what is it? Broke college or drunk
Two
college
Marines.
students, whatever it is.
Drunk college students.
Yes, indeed.
Perfect.
It was a bombshell that hit the Washington establishment and really across the country on Thursday when the U.S. Court of Appeals of the 2nd District up in New York, a unanimous decision by the 3-panel court that what was started by George Bush, what was expanded by Barack Obama, the massive data collection on the part of NSA. Boy, we've talked about this so much over the last, 4 or 5 years, it seems, where they were collecting with or without permission of the FISA court. It started under George Bush without permission of the FISA court, just by executive order, where they were doing all this wiretapping. Remember, it became known as the warrantless wiretapping because he did not have a search warrant. And Bush started that in 2001, right after September 11, citing the Patriot Act as his authority to do so, to do that massive data collection. And as we found out later, under President Obama, it had expanded to include every single phone call made in this country, not just as was under George Bush, phone calls from people in this country to people overseas, but every single phone call made by every American. What they call the metadata, right? Metadata, right? On, they said they weren't listening in on the calls, just tracing who called whom and how long they talked and and not only that, but every email, every text, every form of communication between every American, all of that collected by NSA. And again, both President Bush and President Obama said that was authorized by Section 215 of the Patriot Act. Well, what the court said on Thursday, again, a bombshell decision, was no way. That such a data collection was absolutely illegal, violation of the Fourth Amendment, the right of privacy, and that the Patriot Act, Section 215, only says that the government has the right to collect data, communications data, phone data, which is relevant to a national security case. They can't just collect everything and then hope that someday one little bit of it will be relevant. The court saying that theory was just nonsense. In fact, more than nonsense, it was an illegal activity. Love to know what you think about it. 866-55-PRESS is what we've been saying all along. There was no justification for that, and there's a massive violation of privacy. Now, here's what's very interesting, is that this could not come at a better time, or a worse time for some people, for the United States Congress, because that Section 215 of the Patriot Act expires June 1. And now there are attempts in Congress, two attempts in Congress, to kill it, to end it, or at least end it partially. There is a Rand Paul and Ron Wyden in the Senate would like to just say this practice is illegal. It's going to end. It's got to end. Period. Boom. Kill Section 215. There's also a bill in the House and in the Senate, starting out in the House with bipartisan support. And it has bipartisan support in the Senate, too. A second approach would be to say that all this data can be collected, but it stays with the telephone companies until the NSA goes to the court and says, I've got one particular case. We suspect this one person. We need the data on that person's telephone calls. So it would just be they have to have a reasonable cause, if you will, to go after that data. And then you've got a third approach, which is Mitch McConnell says, let's continue the practice the way it is. Yeah, let's just keep it going, Mitch McConnell, backed up by Richard Burr, senator from North Carolina. They don't want any changes to the Patriot Act. Here's Richard Burr yesterday on This Week with George Stephanopoulos.
I do think it should continue for the simple reason that it's very effective at keeping America safe. And in addition to that, we've had absolutely no incident of anybody's privacy being intruded on.
Oh, yeah? Oh, right. What about the privacy of millions and millions of Americans, you and me, and all of our, still today, the records of every phone call we make being collected by the NSA. It hasn't stopped at all. And remember, this is on top of a report, you may have forgotten about this. Remember back in December 2013, President Obama appointed a commission to look into what NSA was doing. And that commission found that with all that massive collection of data, they could not cite one single case. They could not find one single case where that massive collection of data had prevented a terrorist attack or even led to a possible terrorist attack. Not one case in all those millions and millions and millions and millions of records. So basically, they found out the whole program wasn't accomplishing anything at all. So the question is, what do we do? 866-55-PRESS. I can tell you what I would do. I think this is the time. This is the time to say, look, it's illegal. We should not be doing it. What? This, to me, this is a no-brainer. Congress ought to end this massive collection of your phone calls, my phone calls, your emails, my emails, your texts, and my texts. It's illegal. It's a violation of privacy. The court has told us that now. Now is the time to act. 866-55-PRESS. And as we go to this break, let me just say one other thing. We would not have known how extensive this is without Edward Snowden. Yep. Let's give the man credit. And isn't it time for the Obama administration to stop treating him like a criminal and bring him home? I'm not saying give him a, ticker tape parade up down Wall Street, which I probably would do. Okay. I'm not saying you have to build a new monument to him on the Washington Mall, but at least let him come home. Treat him like the whistleblower that he is, the patriotic whistleblower that he is, and not treat him like a criminal. 866-55-PRESS. Good to talk about this Monday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Silicon Valley's Santa Clara County is often portrayed as a role model for the rest of the country. The county has some of the highest salaries and most expensive real estate in America, thanks in large part to the phenomenal success of tech companies such as Google, Yahoo, Intel, Adobe, and of course Apple, the nation's wealthiest and most profitable company. But Santa Clara County also has a more unseemly distinction. I'm standing near downtown San Jose, inside what is by some accounts the largest homeless encampment in America. The Jungle, as it's known, occupies a 65-acre stretch of creek where about 300 people live in makeshift structures. It's less of a homeless encampment than a full-blown shantytown.
This being the largest homeless encampment in the United States, and with us having Silicon Valley with Steve Jobs and all this cash, we're not supposed to have this kind of homeless problem. You know what I mean?
I done been shot with a pellet gun like 4 times, attacked with baseball bats, my house set on fire.
This is like hell on earth. I mean, this is like something you will not see. You have to see to believe, actually. It's like fourth world conditions.
Hi, have you ever heard of a place called the Jungle?
Sorry?
A place called the Jungle, have you heard of it?
We're not making enough money really for conventional homes or housing, and we make too much money for subsidized homes. So we're kind of, floating between the oil and the water.
We told the landlady here if it would be possible to continue staying here. She said, no, you got to go. I already rented it out. We went and loaded things into a storage facility, and it's still there. And all the campgrounds and things that we saw were too far out of the city, like KOAs and that sort of thing. So what we decided to do was to move into the jungle. So that's what we did.
A few days ago, a woman named Lydia Hernandez was robbed inside of her tent. When she refused to hand over the money, the robbers slit her throat. When she still fought back, they bashed her head with an axe. She died a few hours later. Residents say that the police never come into the jungle, so they have to fend for themselves.
There's no law down there except our own, right? There's no law, so we could smoke dope all day in the open. You know, the dope dealers ain't scared because you know, they're secure.
We go to the Fairmont Hotel and have a brunch or do a philanthropy. That's not going to cut it. We need billions of dollars to go into the inner cities and go into the jungle. Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is known for its innovation, its progressive thinking. It's one of the most progressive pockets in the United States, if not the world, and certainly one of the wealthiest. If we can't do it here, it won't happen anywhere. It's got to happen here.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 26 minutes after the hour, yes indeed, after this big court decision declaring NSA's mega data collection program illegal. Question facing the Congress is, so are they just going to let the NSA continue to do it? Are they going to put the brakes on it? That's one question. The other is, what are we going to do about Edward Snowden? Leave him there in Moscow after we have had this massive, as the president said, this massive conversation about this and right of privacy and how we, protect this country from acts of terror and yet at the same time protect our right of privacy. This massive conversation, thanks to Edward Snowden. Mm-hmm. We have had this presidential commission on NSA spying and its report, thanks to Edward Snowden. We've got this decision now by the Second District Court of Appeals declaring the program illegal, thanks to Edward Snowden. None of that would have happened without Edward Snowden. So why do we consider, why are they treating him like a criminal? Okay, he revealed some secret information. Has anybody been hurt by what Edward Snowden revealed? I don't see it. I think a lot of people have been helped.
I don't understand where, I would love to hear from somebody who still supports this. The spying, the metadata, all of that, right? Because I know they're out there. We get tweets from those people every now and then. I'd love to know what it is now that you're hanging on to, what you're clinging on to.
Well, you know what? The argument is, okay, in fact, Mitch McConnell said this again yesterday. Here's the argument. The argument is this. You can't find the needle in the haystack, right? You need to build the haystack so you can find the needle in the haystack. Okay? To me, that's so silly.
Yeah.
But that's Mitch McConnell said, word for word. This is the talking point that NSA has put out. And I hear people defend. Look, it's a needle in a haystack, but first you got to build the haystack. You know what? Unless you get too much hay, unless you dump too much hay, you'll never find the freaking needle. Okay? That's the reality. And that's what they're doing now. It's too much hay, I say. And there's no justification for continuing this program. Don't you agree? 866-55-PRESS. Bring Edward Snowden home.
Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand?
So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, that guy Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I could just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earthalluia.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right, 34 minutes after the hour. Yes, indeed, time to bring Edward Snowden home and recognize him as a whistleblower and not treat him as a criminal. Still got to make that change. You know, I just was thinking during the break, this is one thing I want to raise with Josh Earnest today at the White House briefing, because the last word we heard from President Obama about Edward Snowden was back in February. He was out in the Silicon Valley meeting with the high tech companies out there. And once again, he said just Snowden's done all this harm, all this damage.
The Snowden disclosures were really harmful in terms of the trust between the government and many of these companies, in part because it had an impact on their bottom line.
You know, I'm sorry, Mr. President. You just let me say about you what you said about Elizabeth Warren on TPP. Mr. President, you are wrong. You're just dead ass wrong. What he's saying is that Edward Snowden, by revealing this, hurt the bottom line of some of these big high-tech. You know why? Because it was revealed that they were giving all this information away to the government without a court order and without the American public knowing it. We did not know that the phone companies were giving away our data to the government, the data on every single phone. We didn't know We didn't know that until Edward Snowden. And if people lost confidence in these companies, the companies were doing wrong by us, by the consumers, right? I mean, that's the only thing. But in terms of any damage, lasting damage that Edward Snowden did to this country or to our national security, I mean, he wasn't giving secrets away to the enemy. He gave secrets away to the American people. He told us what our government was doing, which now we know was illegal.
What's crazy about that?
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, this obsession with Snowden has just got to stop. I think, again, recognize what he did. Maybe not in our lifetime. I hope in our lifetime. Someday, people are going to recognize Edward Snowden for the contribution that he has made to our privacy and protecting our privacy as Americans.
This idea that criticize or point out a flaw in the system, otherwise you become public enemy number one.
Yeah,
it's a good, positive thing.
On the one hand, you know, we always say we want people to, if you see something, say something, right?
Yeah.
That's what they say, right?
Yeah.
Right? We want people who will stand up and speak up when they see wrongdoing. We say that, and yet we treat whistleblowers like dirt. It's not just Edward Snowden. Basically, we think whistleblowers are cheats, right?
Yeah.
Or sneaks, and we treat them that way, and that's wrong. We ought to salute these whistleblowers. Man, there should be a monument to whistleblowers.
You remember they built a little monument. One artist created a monument to Edward Snowden and put in New York, and they immediately took it down.
I forgot about that, right?
You can't get away with it.
Okay. Hey, listen, we got to move on here, and we appreciate your attention to that issue, and you're going to hear a lot more about it. But right now, you maybe you missed it over the weekend. There was a big. Why do they always? There's a Republican gathering in South Carolina, which was called the Freedom Summit again. Why do they always call all their meetings the Freedom something, right? Whatever. So all the Republican wannabes lined up down there over the weekend with their, in typical fashion, all lining up just to attack President Obama, of course. It started out with this. I get a kick out of this. This is Ted Cruz, right? Ted Cruz in South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina.
We need to defend the 10th Amendment.
You know what I love about that? Those
Or
people.
as President Obama calls it, the what?
Those people who have no idea what the 10th Amendment is. I'll bet you. If you go to a group, I'm sorry, I don't want to be too cynical about this, but, my BS needle is going way up on that one. You go to a group of, I don't know, 500 people in that room or something. We have to defend the 10th Amendment. Most of them don't know what the hell the 10th Amendment is.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure.
Now, Bob Dole used to carry around in his pocket, the former Senate Majority Leader, a copy of the Constitution, and he had it turned to the 10th Amendment. And
Really?
he always talked about, because that's why I know what it is. 10th Amendment, it basically is federalism. It says that the federal government only has those powers that are specifically delegated to it in the Constitution, and everything else is the right of the states. Which, of course, Republicans say they believe until the states do things like legalizing marijuana, and then they say, no, the state should not be able to do that. Oh, no. We're for federalism, but only when the state does stuff we agree with, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When the state says, we think that gay couples should have the same right to marriage as straight couples, then those so-called supporters of the 10th Amendment say, no, the 10th Amendment doesn't go that far. Yeah, so that's basically BS on the part of Ted Cruz. Bobby Jindal was there. He still thinks that there's anybody but him and his wife who take him seriously as a presidential candidate.
I don't know about you, but in our states, we think of gun control, we think that means hitting your target that you're aiming at.
That's an old line.
It's been recycled a few times at these freedom summits, I believe.
I know I've heard that line 3 or 4 other times just on this program.
Yeah, yeah.
Rick Perry, I know, has said it.
Yeah, I forget who was the first, but that goes, yeah. It was probably Charlton Heston who said it first. he was head of the...
Yeah.
And, of course, Carly, remember now, I do have to say, I ran into... okay, I'll tell you who it was. I ran into former HHS Secretary Kathleen Sebelius.
All right.
At a local restaurant here Friday evening. And she was very, very upset about Carly Fiorina because she said this woman is being taken seriously only because she's the only woman among the Republican candidates, and they've given her the job of being the mean girl against Hillary.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what she's done. That's her role. And she's agreed to play this role, right? Carly Fiorina, true to form, takes on Hillary.
The New York Times now has a new regular feature. It's called Questions We Would Have Asked Hillary Clinton If We Had Only Had the Opportunity.
But the real star of the Freedom Summit in Greenville, South Carolina for the weekend was the man who will emerge very soon, once he jumps in, as the front runner for the Republican nomination. And, of course, we're talking about Donald Trump.
I'll be making a decision very soon. I think a lot of people are going to be very happy, and some people are going to be very surprised.
Well, what about how does...
I mean, how many times are we going to go through this?
Right.
And how are we supposed to take anything that this group or at this summit, how are we supposed to take any of it seriously?
If they invite him.
Donald Trump.
Yeah,
like, it's bad enough that you have people like Carly Fiorina and Bobby Jindal. But Donald Trump, really?
That's like icing on the cake. It really is.
That line right there, you talk about recycled lines. He's used that line for the past 8 years.
Yeah. And it's always...
Some people are going to be very surprised.
You're going to be very surprised when I make my decision. And then he never runs.
Right. Never. Some people are going to be very happy. Some people are going to be very surprised.
He lives such a big, fat life right now. Do you think, really, that he wants to put himself through running for... that he would condescend or stoop so low as to run for president? No.
Folks,
he just wants the gravy, right?
Yeah.
But as soon as it comes down to doing the work, he won't do it. Okay. Alex Roarty standing by from the Hotline, National Journal Hotline. We'll check in with him about other political news of the day when we come back here on this Monday edition of the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Right now, big banking, software, pharmaceutical, and tobacco corporations are lobbying governments from 12 countries to negotiate the dirtiest deal you've never heard of. There's a reason you haven't heard of the TPP or Trans-Pacific Partnership. There are some major corporations and government officials that don't want you to know what's in the deal. For one, our food safety standards, environmental protections, and local labor laws could all be threatened under the TPP. We could all be forced to pay significantly more for the medicines we need, and you could be fined or even sent to jail for downloading copyrighted content on the internet. How will they know if you do it? Because your internet service providers could be required to watch your online activity. But that's not the scariest part. The TPP gives corporations the power to sue our government in secret tribunals over any law or regulation they claim affects their expected future profits. Don't believe it? It's already happening. Recently, after our government said an American pharma corporation's drug price-raising patents were not legit, the firm sued Canadian taxpayers for a staggering $500 million. And a U.S. fracking company sued us when the Quebec government put a moratorium on shale gas development to study its impacts. These deals will stop us from making our own common sense laws for fear of lawsuits. Thankfully, not everyone is willing to sign on the dotted line just yet. In fact, most government officials still have no idea what they're even signing on to, for good reason. In the U.S., Democrats and Republicans alike are uniting to oppose a fast tracking of the TPP, demanding open debates and negotiations instead. Elected officials in Canada and everywhere should be doing this, and it's our job to make sure they start showing some backbone. Here's the deal. Without a strong public outcry, politicians will only hear the concerns of multinational corporations. And once the TPP is signed, it's here forever. There's no expiration date and no separation clause. This dirty deal has been deliberately branded as a free trade agreement. It is anything but free for people like you and me. And it's not really about trade. It could cost us our internet freedom, labor rights, access to affordable medicine, the safety of our food, and protections that keep our water and air clean. Nobody wants to be struck with a backroom deal we don't want and never voted for. Find out more, speak up, and spread the word.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
13 minutes before the top of the hour, we will be joined at the very top of the next hour by the director of Washington, the ACLU office for here in Washington, D.C., their legislative office, to talk about this, more about the NSA court ruling last Thursday. Right now, taking a look at the political scene, no better place to stay on top of what's happening on the 2016 front, or the Senate and House races in 2016, presidential or Senate or House races, than the National Journal Hotline at nationaljournal.com. Chief political correspondent Alex Roarty joins us on our newsline this morning. Hey, Alex, good to visit with you again.
Hey, thanks, Bill, for having me on.
Yeah, so I don't know whether you saw, followed, we were just playing a couple of clips from the big Freedom Summit down in Greenville, South Carolina, where everybody, I guess, except Jeb Bush shows up, right? Just about.
Well, Jeb Bush might not be counting on winning South Carolina at this point, so that's not a big surprise.
Yeah. What about the others? Rand Paul, Ted Cruz. I'm not sure Rand Paul was even there. I know Ted Cruz was.
I didn't see too much from Rand Paul. I did see Marco Rubio was there. Yeah. Very notably, didn't take questions, which I thought was interesting. I don't know if you guys saw the profile the New York Times did on him and his billionaire benefactor, Norman Brayman in Florida. which was, I thought, pretty interesting and maybe not a coincidence that the senator didn't take questions. Also thought Scott Walker was there. So I thought it was interesting reading some of the write-ups of his speech. Didn't spend too much time talking about his victories over the unions in Wisconsin, which, as far as I can tell, would be close to a first for him and his I guess is it even official yet, presidential campaign. Instead, trying to talk about his experience as an executive in Milwaukee, in Milwaukee County, and I thought that was interesting. A guy who was maybe trying to broaden his profile a little bit beyond just I defeated labor. Maybe in the early stages of doing that.
You know, you're right. I think you're right that Scott Walker has not officially jumped in. Yeah,
I can't keep track of it.
We have, I think probably Fiorina was 7 or 6. And I lose track too. But no, he's not. And also, he left. Scott Walker left Greenville, South Carolina, to go off on his first overseas, expanding his foreign policy credentials, making the obligatory visit to Israel this week and meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, just for good measure, right?
Right. And that's always a little bit of a tricky thing when you're governor and you're running at a time when foreign policy is important. And it's interesting. I mean, if you look at polls among Republican primary voters in particular, foreign policy and national security is just about the most important issue right now. That includes even the economy, which is a real surprise. And it does become tricky for Walker because he's a governor. He doesn't have foreign policy experience. And he's already had stumbles before, if you'll remember, at CPAC earlier this year, suggesting that, you know, if he can take on the unions, he can take on ISIS,
right?
Or whatever the exact construction was of that. It's hard when you don't have that experience. Sometimes that's why you see him taking a trip like this. Basically, just so he can incorporate a few lines into his next stump speech.
Yeah, of course. Oh, yeah, like last week when I was talking to Bibi, when Bibi and I were having coffee, that kind of thing.
Precisely. You could write it for him, Bill.
Yeah, the big news that, of course, came out of Greenville, South Carolina, is that Donald Trump is going to make his decision very soon. Alex, we're waiting with bated breath, of course.
It's always tricky, when you're a political journalist. Do we want to talk about this guy? But
it's fun too.
Right. Every part of me says no, but at the same time, you look at the polls, and he still registers sometimes, and he still has, some appeal to the really populist. I guess some people would say fed up wing of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
I assume most people don't think he really is going to run, or if he runs, that it's for any more than a few months before he, I'm sure, gracefully bows out.
I thought the most interesting political development, if you will, over the week, or statement maybe over the weekend, was Bernie Sanders on Face the Nation. The inevitable question: can you beat Hillary? And he said, "Yeah. Damn straight. Here's why." So he's in it. He's serious.
He is, and I think he raised in his first 4 days something like $3 million. Now, of course, $3 million is what Hillary Clinton raises in a single fundraiser.
Right.
I had one strategist, a Republican, but I think the principle is the same. Tell me this week that people get so caught up in money and who has more money than not. What really matters is that you just have enough money to do what you need to do to execute your plan.
Exactly.
And if Bernie Sanders has $15 million rolling around, that could work.
No. And that's what Bernie says. And I've talked to him about it. I mean, he really feels that they feel that they can raise enough money through a grassroots campaign without any super PAC money to do what, you're right, to do what he's got to do to get his message out. And then they figure the message will carry them from there. It's an interesting experiment, but it certainly makes the Democratic side interesting, right? Whereas before it looked like it was just going to be a total snooze.
I think liberals have to find an outlet somewhere. I don't know if that outlet can really be Martin O'Malley. He's still talking about it. But Bernie Sanders could be an awfully fun candidate out there.
And I hope you've noticed he now is combing his hair.
It's like for the rest of the candidates, they lose weight before they, run for president. He comes his hair.
He comes his hair. All right. Hey, Alex, good to catch up with you. Thanks so much for being with us today.
You too, sir. Thank you very much.
All right, Alex Roarty at the National Journal, nationaljournal.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada. What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
ACLU brought the case against NSA and won. We'll find out more about it top of the next hour. Peter?
A couple weeks ago, Bill, you remember I was telling you about how Prince is out on a new tour called Hit and Run Tour. He's just showing up and playing with very little notice. Well, last night he played in Baltimore. And he unveiled his new song called Baltimore, which is all about the death of Freddie Gray and the protests that followed. So go check that song out. He put it out on SoundCloud.
Is it up there?
It's up there, yes indeed. I'll tweet out a link so you can take a listen to it.
All right. Peter.
At BP Show.
At BP Show. Thanks for bringing us up to date. Yes, indeed. What happens now? What will Congress's reaction be to this court decision on NSA? We'll find out next.
Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, we come to work. That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for. I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or wherever. We're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Bernie Sanders said, damn right, I can beat Hillary Clinton. And he's out to prove it. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? Here we go. Monday, May 11. Good to see you today, and thank you for joining us. Good to have you on board The Bill Press Show as we take off here from our nation's capital and our studio in Capitol Hill. Reach out to you and coast to coast nationwide on your local progressive talk radio station, and also booming out to you nationwide on Free Speech TV. Got a satellite dish, DirecTV? There we are on the Dish Network or DirecTV. And worldwide on our video stream. You have an electronic device, doesn't matter where you are on this planet. We're there with you at TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKRTV. You know, we want to hear from you. We'll tell you what's going on, but most importantly, want to hear from you what you think about the news of the day, and you know how to do it. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS, or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show, or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. The biggest story of the day, of course, still remains the decision announced last Thursday by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second District that NSA's massive data collection program is in fact illegal. Started under George Bush and continued under President Barack Obama. Michael Macleod-Ball is the acting director for ACLU's legislative office here in Washington, D.C. The ACLU is the organization that brought the case, the ACLU of which I am a proud member and have been for a long time. Michael Macleod-Ball in studio with us this morning. Michael, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, and thanks for being a member.
Thanks for coming in. No, I believe in the Constitution, and want somebody who's out there defending my constitutional rights day in and day out. And you do a great job. For all Americans, I have to say.
Thank you.
Not just liberals like me, conservatives.
That's right.
Independents. The Constitution is the Constitution for all of us.
I love when those ACLU the stories come out that even liberals are like, but all right, we get it, right? Like it tweaks even liberals sometimes.
Yeah, no, that's
You're right,
good.
it's for everybody.
It's a challenge. Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy leading our team here this morning, of course. Hello, guys.
Hey, good morning.
Here we are.
With, here he is. Yeah, Jamie Benson. At his post, take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, on the job as well. I should not have to tell you, I'm sure I don't, that yesterday was Mother's Day. And some people got some surprise phone calls on Mother's Day. President Obama. By the way, when the media pool showed up, about, 9:30, 10 o'clock maybe on Sunday morning, the first thing they were told was, you can go home. We're recognizing this is Mother's Day. We want everybody to go home and enjoy Mother's Day. So the president just hung out at the White House, but he did go over to the Oval Office, made some surprise phone calls.
Hi, Stephanie.
Yes.
Hi, this is Barack Obama, your president. Hi, Patty.
Hi, yes.
Hey, this is Barack Obama.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, it is.
No way.
Yeah, way. I decided on Mother's Day I should call up some letter writers' moms and say thank you for being great moms.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. You're one of the moms I want to say thank you to.
It's kind of cool.
It's great. What a great line.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I love that.
I still don't know why the White House insists on putting that drippy music behind
Just put the calls
behind their videos. It's so.
It was like a video game.
It is elevator, the worst of elevator music. Okay, as I said before, it sounds like the Cialis commercial. I don't think that's what they intend. At any rate, all right, here we go. We will talk NSA, and at the half hour, going to be joined by the reporter from the New York Times who has broken this amazing series of stories they're running on just frightful working conditions in nail salons, of all places. But first, Peter.
This is the Full Court Press.
Headline.
Yes, just a couple of other stories making news. Let's go to the NBA, where the playoffs over the weekend, my goodness, were they exciting. First of all, we'll go to Friday, where the Clippers blew out the Rockets. That's not the big story, but the Cavaliers and the Bulls were tied at 96 when Derrick Rose banked in a three. They won 99-96. We go to Saturday, where the Grizzlies blew out the Warriors. But again, that's not the big story. The big story is the Hawks here in D.C. taking on the Wizards, which did it with Paul Pierce banking in a last-minute shot to put them up ahead at the final score, 103-101. The Wizards winning that. Then we go to yesterday. Again, the Cavaliers and the Bulls. Last-second shot by LeBron James goes in. 86-84 was about 3 days, 3 insane buzzer beaters. Crazy basketball happening right now.
Yeah, what a big sports weekend.
It's been great. It was great.
And we have to make that the Nats are just on fire.
Nats are on fire.
Yeah, it's just great.
About 30 minutes.
Bryce Harper, you can't stop him, man. He goes up to
crazy.
He and Ryan Zimmerman, they got the plate and they're,
About 30 minutes
Extra
before
bases.
Paul Pierce hits that jumper to beat the Hawks, Bryce Harper hits a home run.
Walk-off
home run to put them up to beat the Braves. They swept the Braves this weekend.
Yeah.
Bryce Harper hit 6 home runs in 3 games. I think that's the stat, or 5 home runs in 3 games. But crazy.
Yeah.
Just insane.
And sweeping the Braves. We were always afraid of the Braves.
Always afraid of
no
the
matter how well they're doing, when we got up
Yeah.
against the Braves, it was always watch out. But, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, Bill, brace yourself, because we are going to a restaurant in Milliken, Colorado. The restaurant is owned, it's a barbecue restaurant owned by Edgar Antillon and Miguel Jimenez, and they are hosting a White Appreciation Day. All white people will get 10% off on June 11th. They said that they kind of started this as a joke, but unfortunately, some of the residents took it very, very seriously, so they're just going to have to kind of follow through with this. They said we have a whole month for Black History Month. We have a whole month for Hispanic Heritage Month. So we thought we could at least offer one day to appreciate white Americans. Again, they started it kind of as a joke, but a lot of people didn't get the joke. So if you are a white person in Milliken, Colorado, and you want a 10% discount off of your barbecue, June 11th is the White Appreciation Day.
I have other plans, but just check my calendar.
And over the weekend, it happened. Raul Castro meeting with the Pope.
Wait, this will be a case for the ACLU, maybe another case. Milliken, Colorado.
White Appreciation Day. He's thinking of
that. Save that story.
Over the weekend, it happened. Raul Castro meeting with Pope Francis in a historic summit there for the two men. My favorite part of the story is afterwards, Raul Castro said that he was so impressed with the Pope that, quote, "I will go back to praying and go back to church, and I'm not joking."
Maybe
End
he
quote.
said. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Right. Must have been an impressive meeting.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. The story, well, someday the book will be written about the efforts, extraordinary efforts of the Pope. Wouldn't have happened. This new melting or rebuilding of the relationship between Cuba and the United States would not have happened without the personal intercession of the Pope, who really said this makes sense. And I saw on CBS News did a story last night. I mean, Senator Patrick Leahy actually connected with a cardinal from Cuba, and the cardinal from Cuba talks to the Pope, and the Pope brings them together, and they have had secret meetings in the Vatican to help pull this about. Just an amazing story. Also an amazing story Thursday when we saw the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 2nd District in a case brought by the ACLU declare that the bulk collection of data on the part of the NSA is in fact illegal. Michael, how long has this case been going on?
Well, it's been going on for a couple of years. It came out of the one of the earliest Snowden revelations, and those revelations included the revealing of this nationwide call records collection program. So essentially, all of the major providers were providing all of their call metadata to the government, which was then compiling it and storing it and using it to query for investigations related to terrorism, at least presumably, according to their arguments.
This it actually started under George W. Bush.
Well,
right?
the program itself, yes, is part of the original Patriot Act, which was passed a month and a half after 9/11. And there was the Patriot Act law had a lot of different provisions, but one of the provisions was Section 215, which is the provision that was actually challenged here in this particular lawsuit, and that's the section that authorizes the call data collection program.
For all records or just records that are relevant? That's the sticky question.
That's exactly what was at issue in the court case. So the NSA's position has been that the terms used in the statute are that the government can collect any tangible thing that is relevant to a terrorism investigation, excluding. There's a little section that's excluded that has to do with just deciding whether something is worth investigating, and that's outside the realm, and that was key to the court's original decision. So the key issues in the case, though, were whether. In particular, was whether a record is relevant, and how do you determine what relevant means? The NSA's position was that relevant meant essentially everything,
right?
And the court essentially decided that no, it doesn't mean everything. Yes, it's a very broad term, but if you're going to decide to collect all of these records in advance of when you actually think you need them for this investigation, that can't mean what Congress intended it to mean when it originally adopted Section 215.
Now, in discussing this with some of my friends in the administration, and I heard Mitch McConnell used this very, very, very same argument over the weekend. They say, well, look, it's the needle in the haystack, but you can't get the needle unless you have the haystack. So the collection of the data is building the haystack, then we go back and look for the needle.
Yeah, I've heard that argument.
What's your response to that?
Well, there is this whole search and seizure aspect of the Constitution. So I understand that you want to have all the information you possibly can, but the court took that on very directly, and it said you cannot have this indiscriminate collection of personally identifying information. So remember that the information being collected is the so-called metadata, which is essentially, it's not somebody's name and address, but it is all the calls that are made from a number to another number. And the court came to the conclusion and said, look, this is personally identifying information. All you got to do is put a couple of pieces together, and you figure out who's calling whose doctor, who is calling the suicide hotline, who is doing what. It's very easy to do that and turn it into personally identifying information.
And the court ruled that that's a direct violation of the Fourth Amendment. Right?
Well, Well, no, they didn't decide it on constitutional grounds.
Oh.
That question remains open. They decided it on statutory grounds. They're saying that the NSA says that what they're collecting is relevant to a terrorism investigation. The court said no, it's not
that
relevant.
The law
it's
does not
necessarily
go that far.
That's right.
Basically.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
All right. So now we come to the question with Congress, because this section disappears June 1, right?
That's right.
Expires June 1. So
wouldn't that be a nice result?
Right. Congress has to decide what to do.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
And it seems to me, so they've got three options, right? One is leave it go, let it go, which is Mitch McConnell's plan, right? That's right. Then you've got the option, which is, well, let's continue to collect the data, but leave it with the phone companies. And an NSA can only get it when they say, we got a real hot case here. Or the third option, I guess, is kill the program flat out.
Well, yes, except that doesn't require any action. The program expires on June 1st. So if Congress does nothing, Section 215 expires.
And
right.
NSA would have to stop collecting the data.
That's right. Well, actually, the president could tell NSA to stop doing it anyway. So, we'll sort of put that one aside as a presidential executive action that could take place.
All right. Now, if a court has ruled that what NSA is doing is illegal, right, based on the statute, then isn't Congress almost compelled to stop it?
That's a really good question. And one of the questions that we and many others have been spending a lot of time thinking about is if there is a further congressional action that essentially reauthorizes the program, does that presume that Congress is taking into account the court decision and they're saying, oh, well, look, the courts have limited the operability of this particular provision, so we can go ahead and reauthorize it on that basis, knowing that the court's decision will hold true. I'm not quite sure exactly how that plays out as we go down the road here, but there's also a couple of other cases that are pending as well in both the D.C. Circuit and in the Ninth Circuit that are taking on this same provision, and those decisions could come down at any time. So that's another couple of shoes that may drop here. And then the other thing, though, is you have this middle path that has been advanced by Senators Leahy and Lee, Representatives Goodlatte and Conyers and Sensenbrenner that would do, as you say, change the scheme so that the information is collected and held by the providers and then queried based upon some showing of probable cause, and probably not probable cause, but some showing by the government to query the database.
And then the question is, does this change what we think about Edward Snowden? Michael Macleod-Ball here from the ACLU in studio with us. You want to join us? 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest, or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Nearly 2/3 of businesses aren't.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour. Here with Michael Macleod-Ball from the ACLU. Michael, let's say a quick hello to, we're talking about the Second Court of Appeals decision saying that the bulk collection of data by NSA, which we've been dealing with for a long time now, is actually illegal. Here's Zach from Chicago. What do you say, Zach?
Yeah, I think basically, you know, whether a candidate is Democrat or Republican, he's going to have to go with the data collection, because if you don't, it's a political liability. I mean, somebody could use it against you in the election.
Interesting. Michael, what do you think? Is this something where that candidates can legitimately, and will any of them legitimately criticize? Rand Paul certainly will, I guess.
Yeah, Rand Paul mentioned the doing away with the bulk collection program in his announcement speech, but I don't disagree with the caller that it's a risky political move, and you certainly have candidates who are on the exact opposite side within the Republican Party. You've got both Cruz and Bush that have, excuse me, not Cruz, Rubio and Bush that have both called for extension of the surveillance program.
With just about 30 seconds, but do you think this means that Edward Snowden will now be treated as a whistleblower and not a criminal?
Well, of course he should be, but I doubt that that's the case. And again, for the reasons that the caller mentioned, I think we've been waiting for that day when we'd be far enough from 9/11 to be able to have just a true national debate on issues like this. And we hope that this moment right now, after the court decision and while something is pending in Congress, that we're at the point where we can have an honest debate. Let's have folks from the right and from the left and from the middle all weighing in on whether surveillance is warranted.
It wouldn't have happened without Edward Snowden and without the ACLU. Thank you, Michael.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
At 33 minutes after the hour, here on The Bill Press Show this Monday, May 11, breaking news out of New York State, where Governor Andrew Cuomo has ordered emergency measures to protect workers at nail salons. That order by the governor comes in response to a blockbuster two-day series of articles, front page New York Times, exposing appalling working conditions and low wages for workers, mainly females, I think entirely in nail salons across the country. That expose, authored by, written by, researched by Sarah Maslin, reporter for the New York Times, who joins us on our news line this morning. Hello, Sarah. Congratulations, and good to have you with us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Good morning.
How long have you been working on this story? Where are you working on this story, putting all this information together?
The investigation took me 13 months to complete, and a lot of that is because I conducted it in 4 separate languages with the help of 6 translators. And this is a population that really doesn't want to tell its own story. They're undocumented workers working unlicensed, and so it took a tremendous amount of energy and effort to convince people to speak. And when they did, it was very brave of them, I think.
And I haven't. By the way, so what prompted you to do this? What raised the attention about this? Just a whistleblower, or?
No, it was sort of a fluke. I actually was getting a pedicure a couple of years ago on my birthday at a 24-hour salon, a very unusual salon in Koreatown here in New York. And it was the daytime, and I asked the woman, I said, this is such a strange salon, who works the night shift? And she said, I work the night shift. And I said, but it's day. And she explained, I work 24 hours a day, 6 days a week, and on the 7th day, I go back to my bedsit apartment in Flushing, and I sleep for 24 hours and come back and do it all over again.
Oh,
and yeah. And she
as a morning radio TV producer, I can kind of relate.
Well, wait a minute.
Yeah, right. This woman,
that's insane.
She lived in a barracks above the salon. They shook her awake at night to do treatment. And I thought, this woman is enslaved. And my bosses said, see if it's wider than this one salon. And it definitely was.
Where do most of these women come from? You said undocumented, most of them. And so where are they coming from? How do they get here? And who controls them?
Sure. So it's women and men. And it's predominantly a Korean-owned industry, about 80%. And the workers I found are Korean, Chinese, and Hispanic, with about a smattering of Nepalese and other backgrounds. What's really interesting is because of this setup, there's actually in the compensation a race-based caste system where the most desirable worker is considered a young, beautiful Korean woman, and following her is Chinese, and then beneath that is Hispanic. And they're actually paid differently, even in the same salon.
Holy cow.
And what are they? I mean, you in the first story, you talk about, $1.50 an hour, some of them $10 a day, and they're the better paid, I guess, huh? No?
Well, I like to say that the starting salary in a salon is negative $200. That's because you have to pay for your job. You pay a cash fee to the owner, can be up to $200 or maybe even more.
What, just to work there? You have to pay
to work there.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
Yep. And then you work for free for a period of weeks, for maybe even months, and then you become compensated at an arbitrary point when the owner decides you deserve it. And then you'll make about $30 a day, again, unless you are in one of these different ethnicities, and then you make less.
Whoa. So you work for free. This is sort of you have to prove yourself. Is that it? Right?
Yeah, it's considered by the owner a training period, and they consider this fee sort of just compensation for both training these people and also taking on board the risk of hiring, again, undocumented people. The owners, very interestingly, see themselves as heroic. They say we're hiring an unemployable class of people, we're giving them a shot, and that they're doing this for their countrymen.
But I mean, they could never get out of this work, right? I mean, they're never going to make enough money. Where do you go from there? Right? Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's a hard experience. But interestingly, after you work about several years in the industry and maybe you're making something close to a livable wage, I found, what do you have to show for it? Burning eyes, a burning throat, asthma, skin disorders, and even maybe a miscarriage or cancer. That's because there is a federal loophole in the federal law that governs what goes into cosmetics that allows untested, without any pre-market testing, chemicals go into the things that we put on our hair, our face, and particularly our nails.
Whoa, yeah, that's today's story. in the New York Times front page. Again, the headline, Behind Perfect Nails, Ailing Salon Workers. So it's a combination of terrible working conditions, slave wages, just about, and then an unhealthy environment that they're working in, right? And you also talk about in the first article their living conditions. You mentioned, you just used the word barracks. I mean, that's basically what we're talking about, isn't it?
So when I went back to these workers' homes, what I found so jarring is that the experience of a manicure is an incredibly intimate thing. You're holding hands with a woman across the table, staring at her.
Right.
And yet these women aren't seen. And so you have these juxtapositions of them holding hands with these incredibly wealthy women who are getting their nails done. And they go back to one-bedroom apartments split by as many as, 8 or 12 people. And then this is very interesting. So when salons are sort of outside the city, let's say 2 and 3 hours away, maybe even more, salon workers are picked up almost like migrant workers in Flushing every morning on the street corners by vans. And then they might even live at the salon in a barracks, again, underneath, above, or maybe behind the salon. And I visited some of those out in Long Island. They stay for a week or maybe even a month, come back one day a week to see their family. They actually sometimes pay fees to the owners to live in these bunk bed warrens.
My mind is racing. If this is happening in this industry, what other industries are out there that have these same conditions in New York? Or anywhere else.
It's not just New York, right? Yeah.
Well, here's a rule of thumb that I've really come across. There's no such thing as cheap luxury. It's an oxymoron for a reason. And the truth is, somebody is bearing the cost of your discount. And in the nail salon industry, I found that's always the worker. Mm-hmm. But that can hold true for anything. And I think that you're exactly right, that this is something that must be larger.
Did you speak to any of the customers? I mean, first of all, I was stunned by, 17,000 nail salons nationwide? I mean,
and that's probably an undercount, yeah.
Probably an undercount, yeah. I mean, it's become a big thing. Do the people who go there and have their pedicure and their manicures, they have any idea about how bad the working conditions are for these women?
Well, as a customer myself, and from reading all the unbelievable comments that we've gotten on this story, one of the things that keeps coming up is this idea of, I always knew something was off. And that keeps getting said again and again. And I think that's true because, look, as you said about nationwide, the average price of a manicure nationally is over $20. I found a study of 105 salons. The average price in Manhattan, one of the most expensive cities in the country, is $10. Whoa. Here, where a latte is $4, you have the cheapest manicure in the country. I mean, something is going wrong, and I think the customers know.
Yeah, right. I mean that, and again, who's paying the price, right?
Exactly, the person who can least afford to.
Now, the governor has, in response to your articles, ordered emergency measures. Any idea what is he talking about?
Yeah, so those emergency measures were announced this morning exclusively in the Times, and I think it's very interesting. They are going to hit a lot of points. So health and safety. Workers are going to be required immediately to wear gloves, masks, and salons to be ventilated, which is unprecedented and not done anywhere else in the country. Mm-hmm. However, some of those measures haven't really been fully thought out. Masks actually do little to protect them from what's actually in salons. It's almost just like the appearance of safety. And yet I spoke to the governor's office, and they said they're going to do a study that's going to show what are best practices. And this is just for right now, for this emergency measure. Also, they're going to have to be signage in different languages in salons so customers and workers can see it, alerting workers to their rights. That it's illegal to pay for their job and illegal to work for free. There are going to be education campaigns for these workers because they're afraid to come forward because many are undocumented.
Illegal to work for free. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Completely.
Right.
But these people don't know that, and sometimes they're too desperate to fight back. But the immigration status of a worker doesn't matter when they're being compensated. So the government is not going to look at their immigration status or anything because they're afraid to come forward. So that is going to be explained to them. And also, really interestingly, salons are going to now have to require to be bonded, which is a type of insurance, so that if and when they get found to have had wage theft. They can't disappear and hide their assets. So an insurance to make sure they can pay workers their back wages.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can all agree that these emergency measures are a good thing. But if I could just play devil's avocado for one moment, does this mean that there are going to be jobs lost?
Well, one part of this emergency measure says that if a salon refuses to comply with paying wages, it's going to be shut down. But yes, that's a hugely important question, and there's a tension there. I think that if this is an industry that's unsustainable, that can only be sustained by not paying the workers, perhaps there's an argument to be made that it should be shut down, that it actually doesn't work and shouldn't exist. But then again, you have a human consequence. I think this new move by the governor will enable or endeavor to have salons step up and do it right. I don't think that the goal is to shut people down.
We've got to run along, but I do have to ask you, what happens to tips? I would assume that customers tip, like I tip my hairstylist, right? That they tip their manicurist, and who gets the tips?
Sure. So workers told me that tips, especially on the credit card, are skimmed or never delivered, and they're often docked for things like spilled polish or errors. So tips obviously are what these workers live for, who are getting so underpaid, but they are sometimes withheld.
Cash tips only should be the rule. Yes, indeed. Sarah, great
Nice
work. You make us all proud.
Wow, thank you.
And I know you're just getting started on this. I don't know what your next crusade is, but Sarah Maslin, New York Times reporter. Check out at NewYorkTimes.com and read every word of her report. Thanks again, Sarah, for joining us. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Man, tell you, what a story. Just something, I never thought about, but when you think about the exploitation of these workers, it's just sick.
What a subject.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we are. It is 11 minutes now before the top of the hour. Pretty shocking stuff, I got to tell you.
Isn't that crazy?
This. I mean, it's something I never would have thought about. Look, because I, truth be told, I've never been in a nail salon.
Not you?
Life.
Never?
No, never. But, you know, it's an industry, 17,000 of these salons around the country. And the fact that these mostly young women, young girls, right, come in, young women, and are given these jobs and forced to live, and they don't know. First of all, they're undocumented, so their options are limited. I mean, it really is slave labor.
Scary. It's scary to think that goes on because it's total control.
But imagine.
And how do you get out of that?
Forced to live in these like barracks, you know, where eight of them in a one-bedroom apartment. All right, those living conditions. They have to pay $200 just to get in the door and get a post in the salon, and then they work for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks for nothing, just to prove their stuff. I mean.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, it really is.
I'm just like stunned that still happens, right? Like this is the reason that we have so many of these laws is to prevent this type of stuff from happening.
And she talks about these people making maybe $1.50 an hour or maybe $10 a day, right? When they start out. Helen up in Ithaca, New York. Hello, Helen.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. The journalist just touched on this when she was talking about all the maladies that these women had also after they left this job.
And then the health problems, because of everything they're ingesting, you know. The
DEC should be involved in this because, I worked in research and I hate to admit it, but pharmaceuticals and medical research, and we had to use a lot of solvents, but we used like a hood. I walked into this one nail salon to get a pedicure, you know, and I just walked in and I was just like, oh my God. You know, the employees were wearing respiratory masks, but these women are lined up in the waiting room. And they said, you want to make an appointment? I'm like, no, thanks, bye. I was like out of there. Like, how can you breathe that stuff in? That's horrible. There's acetone and multiple other chemicals that they're breathing in all the time. It's very, very bad, you know.
I think Sarah made the point that wearing the mask is not going to be sufficient protection against something like this either. Yeah. So, well, Helen, hopefully this is just the beginning of it. It's good to see the governor respond as quickly as he did.
Talk about some effective journalism,
right? I mean,
right.
That was quick,
right? And again, an issue that most people probably would never think about or give any attention to. And the way she discovered it, she goes in for herself for a pedicure. In a 24-hour salon. Well, who works the night shift? The same woman.
That's just amazing.
Yeah, I do, around the clock. Can you imagine? Well, good for her again, Sarah Maslin here. Pulitzer Prize on its way.
Yeah.
I'll vote for that. And when we come back, we'll close up this hour when I'll tell you what's on the president's schedule for today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like a bag?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 4 minutes now before the top of the hour. President Obama, not a very heavy schedule today. He and the Vice President get the daily briefing this morning at 10 a.m. And then at 3:30 this afternoon, he is delivering remarks in the South Court Auditorium of the old Executive Office building across the street from the White House, recognizing emerging global entrepreneurs. We have our briefing with Josh Earnest at 12:30. The rest of the time, the president will no doubt be dedicating to making calls to members of the House, Democrats particularly in the House and in the Senate, trying to line up support for the Trans-Pacific Partnership, particularly for the Fast Track Authority. The president giving he went out, remember, Friday to Nike. Still questions about why he would choose Nike as a place to go, to talk about how good this trade deal is going to be for the United States, when Nike has been one of the countries most criticized for exporting jobs and employing child labor to make its products. Anyhow, the president gave a speech on that Friday at Nike, and an interview afterwards to Matt Bai from Yahoo News, in which he really, really went after this. Has become personal between him and Elizabeth Warren on this trade deal, and he just said she is dead wrong. He said she's just a politician like any other politician, and so she's opposing this deal just for political reasons only. You know, I gotta tell you, I think the president's making a mistake in taking on Elizabeth Warren on this issue, and I think Elizabeth Warren is right.
This
and he's
is
wrong.
the Bill Press Show.
What they told us we were doing was going to rid the state of frivolous lawsuits. So we said, okay, let's vote for this.
Leading up to the 2003 effort in Texas, the insurance companies primarily, but also the medical industry, started this drumbeat. They were alleging that medical malpractice lawsuits were soaring and the cost of healthcare was going way up. They barraged the citizens of Texas with these frightening, scary messages that we were in some sort of crisis. But the reality was that simply wasn't true.
One of the things I think the public doesn't fully understand is that lawsuits are about a lot more than just seeking compensation for an individual plaintiff. By giving damages to the individual, the jury is sending a message about safety to the doctors, the nurses, the hospital. Please change your ways. Make healthcare safer to protect all of us.
Bill and Kelly Putnam experienced a nightmare scenario. They're in the nursing home with their father. The nurse administers medication improperly. As a result, he started to choke on the medication, and Kelly was forced to provide CPR on her father, while staff at the nursing home did nothing.
I was probably 6 inches away from my dad's eyes. He's no longer thrashing, he's no longer moving.
And so they took him to the hospital, they worked on him, cause of death, aspiration. Texas Board of Nursing ruled that the nurse not only did what we said she did, but she also said that the facility had her destroy the medical records for that day and create a new version. I decided to give a lawyer friend a call. I went through probably 10, maybe more. All of them I got the same letter back, stating that because of tort reform, we cannot afford to litigate these types of cases.
What the 2003 restrictions did was make it economically unfeasible for most attorneys to take most medical malpractice cases. It's a cynical attempt to make it harder for people to go to court by making it harder for them to get representation.
I do remember when Patricia Whitman first contacted me, because as a cardiologist, I was pretty outraged when I looked at the medical records.
Patricia Whitman visited the emergency room complaining of chest pains. They look at her EKG. Doctor says, no, you've got indigestion, go home. The symptoms persist. Next day she goes in, sees a different physician. She's been having a heart attack.
Anyone looking at the EKG in a patient with chest pain has to consider that that patient is having an acute heart attack until proven otherwise. All of these abnormalities were essentially ignored, and a diagnosis of acid reflux was made in Patricia Whitman's case, and that was the wrong diagnosis.
The doctor came in and he said that I had substantial permanent heart damage and that I was, quote unquote, 100% disabled. Prior to the heart attack, I had a 3,500 square foot home that I took care of, and I was on my feet 8 hours a day going to cosmetology school. Then I would come home and cook for my kids and do whatever else needed to be done. I did it all. After the heart attack, I couldn't keep up with the house. I couldn't pay the mortgage. My life has changed a lot. I will never be able to do what I used to do. I have to depend on 5 heart medications that I have to take every day in order to survive. This is a letter from one attorney. It would be difficult to prove that the ER physician's conduct rose to the level of gross negligence. No attorney would take my case.
Tort reform involved a specific passage of language that said that a simple negligence standard no longer applied to emergency room care in Texas. The new standard was a gross negligence standard called willful and wanton negligence.
You have to prove in court that that doctor saw me walk through the door and said, that's my next victim. And of course that doesn't happen. And so people like Patricia Whitman, who find themselves in the emergency room and are misdiagnosed or harmed, face almost no ability for accountability. If you look back and you break down the arguments made by the insurance companies and medical industry about the cost, quality, access of healthcare in Texas, by every metric, we're worse off today than we were 10 years ago. It has made life better and easier for a small group of corporate interests at the expense of the rest of us.
These corporations, they have no fear because they know that they're not going to be held responsible. It shouldn't be about money. But unfortunately, that's the only language these people speak. That's why we're out protesting.
We will stand out on the street in front of the facility with signs that state what happened and make sure that they understand that we're not going to go away and that what they did was wrong.
We must restore meaningful accountability in this state so that another family does not go through the same nightmare that they've been through. If enough people in the public say enough is enough, then politicians have to think twice. We're never going to be able to compete with the special interests in terms of campaign contributions and money. Where we have to compete with them is in boots on the ground. The more people that rise up and say, we want our rights back, then they have to think about it. And once we've made them think about it, then half the battle is won.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Bernie Sanders said, you bet I can beat Hillary Clinton. And here's how. He is on his way on the Sunday shows yesterday. Hello, everybody. What do you say? It is Monday, May 11. Good to see you today. Thank you for joining us. It's the Bill Press Show. We are here with you on your local progressive talk radio station, and glad to be here and join you in Radio Land, coast to coast. Also, happy to see you on Free Speech TV. Got a satellite dish? You're with us on DirecTV or the Dish Network. And happy to see you worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV. On this Monday, May 11, Congress coming back in session this week. Their number one challenge will be deciding what to do, if anything, about the Patriot Act in light of a decision last week by the U.S. Court of Appeals, 2nd District up in New York, that the massive collection of data under NSA started by George Bush and continued by President Obama is illegal. Hard to see how Congress can let the Patriot Act survive or continue without change after the court has said what the NSA is doing is illegal, but that's what they'll be wrestling with this week. We'll keep our eye and bring you up to date, inform you of what's going on here in Washington, around the country, and around the globe, and hope to hear from you on what it all means to you at 866-55-PRESS. That's our toll-free number. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. And you will join our team, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hey now.
Hey, good morning.
What do you say?
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday, yeah. With Jamie Benson, there he is on the phone.
What are these things? You're going to get his name. You're going to get him down. You're going to get comfortable with it.
It takes me just a little bit because I look at that chair and it's good.
He always has to find him first.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't see him. And then Cyprian Bowling, our videographer here, as well. Mother's Day over the weekend. Have a good weekend.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Celebrated in style, I hope.
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
Good. And we're going to talk
I
politics
mean, it was
here.
fine. Whatever she wanted to do, It's,
Yeah,
it was
you
easy.
said
It was easy.
you forgot your mother. You just said no.
Well, like my mom's birthday was Friday, so I had to come up with 10 good minutes of material for Friday, and then on Sunday I had to do another call, so I got to have at least another good 10 minutes of material.
That's not fair.
It's not fair.
No,
it's not fair. I like it when Mother's Day is her birthday.
Gotcha.
Then it's just done. Knock it all
I'll
out.
get it over with, right?
Life's tough.
Talking politics here at the top of this this next hour, and this hour rather, with Emily Schultheis from National Journal. She's particularly covering the Hillary Clinton campaign. Emily, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, and at the half hour, we'll be joined by Joe Cirincione to take a look at the world's hotspots. Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshare Fund, of course. All right, we'll get right to it, but first, Peter.
This is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news, some troubling news for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their third pick overall in the NFL draft, Dante Fowler, tore his left ACL on Friday, and he is out for the entire season.
Whoa.
He was the third pick overall. He was expected to do big things, but he will not even play one snap in his first season, his rookie season, so we'll have to wait to see how he fits in the NFL.
So out for that long? Whoa.
Yeah, he's going to be out for a while. It's a bummer.
So that was that their first practice?
Tim Tebow in.
Yeah, it was like their first practice.
Oh my goodness.
So he's out. Speaking of sports, shocking news on Friday afternoon as it was announced from ESPN that they will not be renewing their contract with Bill Simmons.
Yeah,
Bill Simmons has done a lot to change the face of sports and sports reporting, but and he's had some problems with ESPN in the past. They've had to suspend him for things that he said.
But it's been there like 15 years,
He's been
right?
there for a long, long time, and they just said that they couldn't come to terms, and so they're not going to have Bill Simmons. I'm anxious to see where he goes, because there's all different kinds of routes he could go here. So good luck, I guess. I'm not a huge Bill Simmons fan. Whatever. And believe it or not, Led Zeppelin is coming back. They announced that they have a new studio album coming out, and they're going to go on tour. Now, this is the first time that they've really gotten all together since 1982. Of course, John Bonham's not around. He's no longer with us. But everybody's getting back together. Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, they're getting back together. And Jason Bonham is going to play drums, the son of John Bonham.
Nobody dies in the rock world. Right?
Rolling Stones
so true.
The Rolling Stones are on tour. The
on
Grateful Dead still go on tour. Whoever's left, and now.
Yeah.
God.
Led Zeppelin.
All right. Led Zeppelin. Thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed.
Dads everywhere are thrilled with this news.
I had granddads.
Yeah, granddads. Yeah, right. Pretty much.
All right. So, Emily, you have been on the road with former First Lady, former Secretary of State, former New York Senator Hillary Clinton. A pretty quiet campaign so far.
Right, and that's by design, exactly. It's going out there as a national political reporter is very different than if I were an education reporter covering one of her events at a community college, or an immigration reporter covering the one that she did in Vegas. It's by design. They make it so that it's very hard to focus on anything but the fact that she is sitting at a small table with a small group of people and having a conversation. It's not lofty, it's not grand, and that's definitely their point.
And how much access do you, as a political reporter, have to the candidate?
Not a ton. We are there. People oftentimes will start to shout questions. Occasionally she'll stop and answer one or two, but as one of my colleagues has been tracking, she has answered 8 on-the-record questions from reporters since she launched her campaign.
8?
That's correct.
On topics that she wanted to talk about, right?
She's had a few that were on substantial policy issues. She answered a question from Andrea Mitchell about trade. She did answer a question about the Clinton Cash book that came out last week. Some of the other questions, though, include things like, how's it going on the road so far? Or how does it feel to be back in Iowa?
Does she Has she taken a stand on the Keystone Pipeline yet?
She has not. That's something that she has consistently said because the State Department is reviewing it and she was involved that she can't. So that is still the justification she's giving.
Has she taken a stand on the Fast Track Authority yet?
She has not. She has started to say things, and one of those questions that she answered was to sort of hedge a bit on TPP and essentially say that that a trade deal needs to do certain things in order for her to support it, but she's not said either way how she feels about that.
Right. And what is the thinking? What do you hear from people in the campaign? How long is this sort of listening tour going to last before she comes out swinging?
We expect that she will be holding a big rally probably the end of this month or early next month. They intended it to be maybe 6 or 8 weeks of this. I suspect she'll get to South Carolina, the final of the 4 early states that she hasn't visited yet, before she does that. But I don't know. I think they recognize that this is 18 more months here, and that they want to kind of ease her back into being on the campaign trail. And also, as we talked about before, not have her come out and look like this hugely inevitable character.
So it's been Iowa, New Hampshire,
Nevada, and then she's done
Nevada.
some South
That's right. Nevada's
fundraising.
the third one, and now South Carolina probably next.
Probably.
Right. On the I mentioned at the very top of the hour, she now has at least one opponent in the Democratic primary. Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont, who appeared on Face the Nation yesterday with Bob Schieffer, and he was asked the question that everybody asks, and let's let Schieffer and Bernie with this exchange.
Let me just ask you right now, do you really think you could beat Hillary Clinton? And if so, how and where is she vulnerable?
Okay, great question. The answer is yes. And the answer is because there is, in my view, massive dissatisfaction in this country today with corporate establishment and the greed of corporate America and the incredibly unequal distribution of wealth and income which currently exists. Bob, when you have 99% of all new income generated today going to the top 1%, when you have the top 1/10 of 1% owning almost as much income as the bottom 90%, people working longer hours for low wages, and all of the money is going to the people on top, you know what? People don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, there it is. He kind of sums it up in a nutshell, what his campaign is all about. I mean, that's his message, and he's taking it out there, and it's going to be interesting when the two of them get on stage for the first debate.
Right, and that is, I think that it's very clear to both him and to Hillary Clinton that issues of wage stagnation and income inequality are going to be a huge part of this campaign, and that's why she is talking about them in her own way too. But from her, you're hearing more the deck is stacked against in the favor of the people at the top versus this is about corporate greed. They're kind of speaking about it in different ways, but both talking about it.
How willing do you think Hillary will be to take on Wall Street, like the way Bernie does, and take on the top 1%? Yeah, because you know where they are, and we know where they are, and we know who they are. They're the hedge fund managers on Wall Street.
Right. I think that still remains to be seen. The fact that she came out as I think more forcefully than most of us imagined she would on campaign finance and on some of these issues, that would indicate that she will that she's going to be talking about these things. I don't know how much she will sound like Bernie Sanders on it and talk about corporate greed and things like that.
To what extent will there's a front page story in the Washington Post this morning about the role of Bill Clinton in the Hillary Clinton campaign. We've already seen the former president make some comments that were not necessarily helpful to the Hillary campaign. Is there a little tension there between the two? I mean, not between the two of them. Between the, I'm sure there is.
Yeah, that's a totally different topic.
That's right. But between the former president's office and Hillary's campaign, in terms of how they use him.
Right. I'm sure that there is, and obviously there was in 2008, and I think everyone on her campaign is very cognizant of that Bill Clinton can be a huge asset and is a very, very politically talented guy, but he can also cause them headaches. And so I think that, the conventional wisdom right now is that he is going to not really take much of a role, at least in this first year of her campaign. Potentially down the line, he might do a bit more, but they think that he is potentially helpful in the future, but for the moment want her to sort of be her own
But you know
candidate.
what? That theory holds until the first reporter sticks a microphone in his face and asks him a question.
Right. And it is. I mean, last
As
week.
we saw last week, right? Yeah.
Right.
with
Those
the
are the exact same types of questions that her campaign does not. He was answering them in the exact way that they would not have wanted him to answer those questions.
Right.
So.
Overall, do you think the Clinton cash scandal, the money, the foreign money to the Clinton Foundation, is a damaging issue for Hillary's presidential campaign?
I do think it's a damaging issue. I think it depends on the ways in which other candidates and Republicans talk about those things. I think that they could certainly make an effective case that this idea that the Clintons feel like they can play by their own rules and that she is above the kinds of things that regular people have to deal with. That said, there's certainly concern among Republicans, and I think that you've seen this in the ways that they've responded about overplaying their hand. And so, it could be something that turned into, it could eventually be something that Republicans perhaps overplayed. And so I think that they're being very careful about that.
Right. And despite the kind of shocking nature of the allegations, if you will, even Schweitzer, right? Peter Schweitzer? Peter Schweitzer, the author of the book, Clinton Cash, had to admit there was no smoking gun. I mean, he didn't have any direct evidence that any of the cash to the foundation, it may smell, but he didn't have any direct evidence that the cash to the foundation influenced her decisions as Secretary of State.
And that's when you talk to Democrats about this, most of them say, look, it's at this point, there's no smoking gun. There's nothing that, unless there is one, it becomes hard for it to move beyond, like you say, just a circumstantial problem versus a really, really significant one. That said, I think that what worries Democrats about this issue is that it's been kind of a steady trickle for the last few months, and they're not sure how much more there is that could come out over the next 18 months.
No, it's messy.
On that note, right, so let's say that Hillary Clinton does get a scandal that she can't overcome. What's the timeline of somebody else getting into this that's not Bernie Sanders or Martin O'Malley? Because it's really the only two names, or what's his name? Jim Webb.
Jim Webb.
Those three names are the only ones that are really being considered.
Well, I would point out that this is early May 2015.
I know.
You probably have until August 2016.
Okay.
Before
it gets to be too late.
After the convention in 2016, it's too late.
Okay.
Right.
Before the convention, technically, it could happen.
All right.
Emily Schultheis with us here from the National Journal. And when we come back, let's take a look quickly at the Republican side, particularly at the one Republican candidate who feels it is her mission to attack Hillary Clinton. Of course, we're talking Carly Fiorina. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
They called her Little Sanju. She was born in a village at the foot of the Himalayas, the smallest of 7 brothers and sisters.
My family was very poor. To get by, we raised cows and we made small things for tourists out of bamboo. But we were always hungry, and no matter how hard he tried, my father was always in debt. When I was 11, my father told me I had to go to work making carpets. I had to leave with a man who took me to the carpet factory. The broker who took me away got paid, but they never paid my father anything. I made knots from 4 in the morning until 8 at night. There was never a day off. I was always hungry. I cut my fingers while weaving and had to weave with cut fingers. My hands began to look like my grandmother's. I cried every night. I thought the rest of my life would be only this.
It takes 1 million knots to make one 8x10 rug. In the 1990s, 1 million children were enslaved making carpets in South Asia. Then a hero entered the picture. It was you. If you knew how these carpets were made, you would no longer think they were so beautiful. And if you could choose a better rug, your buying power could end child slavery in the rug industry. From that simple idea, Goodweave was born. Here's how it works. To earn the Goodweave label, companies agreed not to employ children. Goodweave makes sure by conducting surprise inspections. When children are found, Goodweave helps them.
2 years ago, a Goodweave inspector named Grona found me in the factory. When I saw him, I was scared, but Grona put his arm around me and told me it would be okay. Grona took me to Hamrogar, a home for rescued carpet kids run by Goodweave. I'm the first person in my family to ever go to school.
Today, thousands of children like Sanju have been educated and rescued by Goodweave. And because you chose the Goodweave label, 3/4 of those million children weaving carpets are now free. And Sanju? With Goodweave's support, she's able to attend her village school and live at home where she belongs. Now that's a beautiful rug that tells a beautiful story. Stand with Sanju. Insist on the Goodweave label.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The world's hotspots with Joe Cirincione in the next half hour here of the Bill Press Show on this Monday, May 11. Good to have you with us. Right now we're talking the politics of the day with Emily Schultheis, political reporter for the National Journal at thenationaljournal.com. So we mentioned on the Republican side, many of them announced or about to announce candidates gathered at the so-called Freedom Summit in Greenville, South Carolina this weekend. Among them, Carly Fiorina, who struck a familiar tone now with her comments.
The New York Times now has a new regular feature. It's called Questions We Would Have Asked Hillary Clinton If We Had Only Had the Opportunity. Yes,
there it is. So she's the heavyweight against Hillary, right? That's her job?
That's her role, and that's really, this is something that she has been very methodically planning for, road testing all through the course of last year with her. She had a PAC called Unlocking Potential to talk about how Republicans can interact with female voters. And so she has really been carving this role out for herself long before she announced last week.
Does she believe that we just forget about her dismal performance as CEO of Hewlett-Packard?
Well, I wrote a piece last week about her entrance into the race, and very quickly heard back. They have someone who is pushing back on those sorts of things very quickly. So I think they recognize that certainly it's an issue, but she has talked about...
What did they tell you? Oh, no, she didn't fire 37,000 people or whatever.
Not quite that, no, but just, trying to talk about what she's done well or what the highlights were.
Yeah.
So...
They could make that case to maybe they should try to make that case to the Hewlett Packard shareholders, right?
Exactly.
Who lost their shirt when the stock plummeted. Emily, we're just getting started on this mess, but it's good to have you with us to sort our way through it. Thanks so much.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
the most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go now at 33 minutes after the hour. It is the Bill Press Show. We are coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. We're located in our studio on Capitol Hill, just down the street from the United States Capitol building, where we are brought to you today by the American Federation of Teachers, the good men and women of the AFT, the Teachers of America. We salute them, thank them for their sponsorship and their good work under President Randy Weingarten. You can catch up with them and their good work at their website, always, aft.org. Waiting for the Metro to deliver Joe Cirincione to the studio. Breaking news before
I have some very important breaking news.
Yes.
Fox is pulling the plug on American Idol. There will be no more American Idol after next season. American Idol is going to be going into its 15th season, and the Fox announced it's going to be its last. They're going to stick with the same judges, Jennifer Lopez, Keith Urban, and Harry Connick Jr. They are the judges for the final season, and Ryan Seacrest will remain on as the host. But they took a look at the numbers, and it's just not there anymore. So no more American Idol.
But you know what? Actually, they're pronouncing it dead. It died.
It died a long time ago.
10 years ago.
They were pointing out
not
that
10 years. It died 5 years ago, anyhow.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Whenever Simon left, it died.
Agreed.
But the day when it was Simon and Paula and Randy, remember, every week, we followed it on the show. We used to play the clips. We had
experts.
We had our own American Idol person.
Carell did it for a little while. We had some other people that helped out with it. Yeah, we had a whole thing.
And that was a time when you really paid attention to it. You had to know what was going on. You could not follow it, right?
Right, and all the different players. They were saying some of the numbers on what played into this. So season 13, the one that we just finished, the finale drew in 10.1 million viewers, which is a big number.
That is.
But you compare that to the season 2 finale, when they pulled in 38 million viewers. 38 million viewers they were pulling in in season 2.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Anyway.
All right.
We're not going to have American Idol to kick around for much longer.
No. Well, we thank you. We thank you for the breaking news. There was some other breaking news on Thursday of last week, and it's still very much in the center of attention. I'm talking about the decision by the by the Second District, United States Court of Appeals for the Second District up in New York. Their decision, they said, they looked at it as a suit brought by the ACLU. We had the director of their Washington office in studio with us a little earlier. And the court ruled in that suit against the United States government that NSA's massive collection of data, every phone call, every email, every text that we've been talking about for so long, that Edward Snowden revealed in its full reality, I guess I should say. The court ruling that program is illegal. It is a stretch beyond the legality, beyond the defensible of the Patriot Act. This program, again, started by President Bush, expanded and continued by President Obama, both of whom said that they had the authority to do that under the terms of the Patriot Act, Section 215. The court said, nope, they're reading 215 wrong. 215 only applies to relevant information. You can only collect this, according to Section 215, information that is relevant to a particular national security case. You cannot stretch it to make it apply to all records of all phone calls and all emails. A very, very, very important decision that really strikes at the heart of what the NSA has been up to and could not arrive at a better time for the United States Congress, because this Section 215, this infamous section, that again, both the Bush administration and the Obama administration have been leading on, that section expires June 1. So Congress is either going to have to do something or the thing's going to expire anyway. And there are basically 3 schools of thought on this. One is, in Congress, 3 ways of going. There are those like Rand Paul, who say, and Ron Wyden, Democratic senator from Oregon, who say, fine, let it expire. Let's do nothing. That program will be over with, done with, once and for all. Goodbye, good riddance. Number one. And I'd love to know what you think the Congress ought to do about this. 866-55-PRESS. It seems to me they got to do something. When the court says what you're doing is illegal, the last thing they can do is not make any change at all. So again, one option is just let it expire. The other option is put out there by Senator Patrick Leahy from Vermont, with Mike Lee from Utah. So you've got Republican and Democratic support here. And they would say, no, we'll let the program continue. They'll still collect all this telephone information, but it'll be held by the telephone companies, not by the NSA, by private industry, not by the government. And it's available when the government goes to the FISA court and says, we got a case we're suspicious about, we want to take a look at their phone records. Then they can get calls for a specific individual, but not for all of us. That's sort of a middle ground, if you will. Let the program continue, information held by the telephone companies. And then the third possibility, Mitch McConnell, this is what Mitch McConnell wants to do. Mitch McConnell wants to reauthorize the Patriot Act and expand it to include any and all information. So you got one of 3 ways to go before the end of the month. 866-55-PRESS, as far as I'm concerned. What I think they ought to do is just let 215 expire and end the program, because remember, this decision by the court that what NSA is up to is illegal comes on the heels of a report by the president's own commission on NSA. If you recall, after the Edward Snowden revelations, the president says, well, we need a national conversation about this. How do we collect all this data and still protect people's right of privacy? So he says, we'll have this national conversation, and I'm going to appoint a commission to look into it. That president's commission reported in December 2013 that what NSA was doing was also, they said, was wrong. And they said, and here's the key point, that there had not been, they could not find one single case in all the millions and millions and millions and millions of bits of data collected. They could not find one single case where all of that data resulted in finding out about a threat to our national security or preventing a terrorist attack. So that the whole program, as big as it was basically useless. So it seems to me, on top of that, Congress has to act now to kill the program. 866-55-PRESS is the toll-free number. Love to know what you think about it. And may we add that it's time also, with this decision, for the United States. Remember, how do we know about this? Edward Snowden. It's time to bring Edward Snowden home. Let him come home, back to the United States. And again, treat him like the whistleblower that he is, and not like a criminal, which is the way he's been treated so far. We find out Joe Cirincione, our friend, poor guy, stuck on the metro. We've heard about the metro problems this morning.
Big problems.
Some big, huge delays. But we'll be able to catch up with Joe on the phone when we come back here very quickly here on the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
14 minutes now before the top of the hour. You know what? As they say, you can't keep a good man down. The metro breaks down, stalls all millions of riders here in the Washington, D.C. area, but not Joe Cirincione. He gets off the train, makes his way to the surface, and grabs a phone. Joins us on our news line. Hello, Joe. Good morning.
Hello, Bill. Bill, I'm sorry I can't be there in the studio with you.
Well, we are too, but delighted to have you on phone because there's so much happening on the world front. I got to start with this. This is the 9 months now of airstrikes. Just had to celebrate the 9-month anniversary airstrikes against ISIS. What have we accomplished? What have they achieved, if anything?
Well, we've conducted over 5,000 airstrikes, most of them done by the U.S., about 1,500 with our coalition partners. We are doing body counts. We're back in the body count business. They estimated this. We've killed something like 1,500 ISIS militants, but it's hard to say. About 1,000 ISIS targets struck in these airstrikes. The results are hard to define. What the military is saying is that we've stopped the advance. We've stopped the progress and started pushing them back. For example, in cities like Tikrit that they once held and ground forces now seized. But the big problem is that the ground forces aren't really strong enough to take advantage of the strikes and hold and occupy the territory once held by ISIS.
So we were told from the very beginning, Joe, that these airstrikes were only a temporary measure, right, and could not by themselves do the job. I guess we've learned that, haven't we?
Yeah, we have, and they're now talking about a campaign that would go on for 3+ years, as the military testified to Congress. So no end in sight.
Yes. Now, this week, I'm just jumping along because we have a lot to cover in the little time we have with you. This week, President Obama is entertaining leaders of the Gulf nations here in Washington, a dinner Wednesday night, and then an all-day summit at Camp David on Thursday. Friday, the White House announced that on the day before the summit, the president was going to hold a one-on-one meeting with the new king of Saudi Arabia. That was followed by an announcement by Saudi Arabia that the king wasn't going to show. What's going on, Joe?
Yeah, we were assured he was coming. He met with Secretary of State John Kerry in Riyadh just on Thursday and Friday, said, I'll see you in Washington, and then over the weekend announced he wasn't coming. He says it's because of the crisis in Yemen. The Saudis are declaring a 5-day ceasefire to allow humanitarian relief to go to the poor Yemenis that they've been killing in very large numbers. But most of us have to interpret this as a snub, that this is a sign of King Salman's displeasure at the U.S. I have to, basically over Iran, that he just felt that the U.S. wasn't going to give enough security assistance, enough new pledges at this GCC summit to satisfy him. I have to say, I'm on the president's side here. I think the president is bent over backwards to reassure our Saudi allies, and he's gone far enough. And the king is throwing a little bit of a hissy fit here. And I hope the president just takes this in stride.
You know, it's interesting, isn't it, that for the first time, maybe, we see Israel and Saudi Arabia both lined up on the same side. Neither one of them likes the fact that we might be able to strike a deal with Iran. Isn't that strange?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this deal with Iran, both because it'll solve one of the biggest nuclear problems we have, but also because it opens up possibilities of options for the United States. Maybe we don't have to rely so much on Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states. We can make some arrangements with Iran, and this is what bothers the Saudi king most of all. He fears he's losing influence, and he's not getting enough in return, enough new arms sales, enough new security assurances. He wants a security treaty with the United States, which we're not going to give him. So this is part of his gamesmanship, trying to extract as much as possible out of the coming Iran deal.
Now, there's a word at the White House among the press corps, Joe, that what this summit is really all about is that each one of these countries is coming with their shopping list for new weapons that they want from the Defense Department. What do you know about that, or what do you hear about that?
I think that's exactly right. Many people have seen all along that once you make the deal with Iran, you have to reassure your allies. Fine, fair enough. But a lot of that usually means new arms sales. And that is sort of the easiest thing to give our allies. So you've seen some new arms sale agreements with Israel. We just agreed to sell them the F-35, the most advanced fighter in the U.S. arsenal. Doesn't work very well, but it costs a lot. and it's got some stealth capabilities. The U.S. is refusing to sell this particular plane to the Arabs, in part to preserve an Israeli advantage. But it's this kind of bargaining, these kinds of sales, that you should see a lot more of in the months ahead.
Okay. And on a final note, investigative reporter Cy Hirsch, who's got a great track record, is out today with a story in the London Times, I believe it is, accusing President Obama of lying about the raid against Osama bin Laden, and said we didn't find this out through our own intelligence, that basically the Pakistanis were in on the deal and they told us where he was, and based on that information we went out and were able to get him. Again, your reaction. Have you seen this story, and what's your reaction?
I have only read the stories about the story. I know Cy for a long time. I agree with you. He's usually very reliable. If this is true, this is this is turning upside down everything we've known about the raid. It was as far as all of us knew, this was U.S. intelligence, a U.S. raid conducted in complete secrecy without letting the Pakistanis know at all, because the Pakistanis, after all, were allowing Osama bin Laden to stay in the country, and we didn't want to tip him off. So it's hard to understand how Cy's story could be true, but I guess we'll all have to read it for ourselves.
At the same time, yeah, I agree with you. It's hard to believe, but at the same time, you could see why maybe the Pakistanis did not want the world to know that they're the ones who blew the whistle on Osama bin Laden, right? That we, you could see how such a deal might have benefited both sides.
Well, and anyone who's seen the last season of Homeland has a good flavor for the duality of the Pakistan intelligence and military operations. Often one faction is doing something the other faction doesn't know about, and that may be the case here, that a deal was sort of cut out with a section of the intelligence service that was kept completely secret from everyone else. Once again, Cy Hirsch is doing some reporting that nobody else has. We'll all have to take a look at it.
All right. Joe Cirincione, listen, there's nothing beats having you in studio, but we're so grateful to you finding a way to connect this morning. Thank you, Joe.
I'm happy to make it up to you. I'll drive next time.
All right. We'll see you soon. Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund, ploughshares.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, as we've been talking this morning, George Bush started it, Barack Obama expanded it, But late last week, a federal appeals court ruled it was against the law, NASA's mass spying on phone calls and emails initiated by Bush and added and expanded by President Obama. Now it's up to Congress to act. There is no way Congress should continue a program that a federal court has ruled to be illegal. And one final note, we never know what the NSA was up to without the actions of Edward Snowden. It's time for the Obama administration to stop treating him like a criminal and allow him to return to the United States and be recognized as a courageous whistleblower that he really is. That's it for today, folks. Come back again tomorrow.
This is the Bill Press Show.